Well, thanks for joining me. We've had a huge amount of interest in our Virtual Evensong, and I originally got you guys on board because obviously we couldn't just do it without. And it's absolutely crucial, and people all over the world are realizing how important this kind of communication is. So I think people mostly want to know, from looking at these loads of questions that I've got from people, um, I've distilled the questions that most want to know about. And the thing that most people want to know about is, how do we do it? At this moment, Alex, people don't even know your full name and what you do. So, Alex James, carry on from there.
Yes, not the bass player from Blur. I'm in. I'm still a student at university at the moment. I'm on my placement year, and I do a course that's called the Tonmeister degree, which is a kind of prestigious sound engineering degree, which is only offered by the University of Surrey in the UK, and there are only a few universities around the world that offer the course as undergraduate. And they produce some of the best sound engineers across the country, and a lot of the top recording studios will have Tonmeister graduates working for them, and they also go on to do other things completely unrelated to sound engineering. And in my third year, I've been working for Chandos Records, which is a British record label, classical record label, mainly doing editing. So having the ear for editing classical music has really helped this project.
Can I come in at this moment and say that the great advantage, one of the great, apart from their technical skill, these two, they both are extremely good, close your ears, you two, extremely good musicians. I really felt blessed having these two that not only could do the technical stuff, but knew exactly what I was talking about musically. So Matt, you name your studio something clever, don't you?
Yeah. So, first of all, as a person, my name is Matt. I'm a freelance violinist, singer, and sound engineer. I am also the founder and head engineer of Paraxa Studios. There is some branding commitment there. And yes, the audio engineering side, primarily, I'm an audio engineer. The lockdown has kind of brought in a load of virtual projects, which has given both myself and Alex a huge kind of taste for the type of work which we experienced with the Virtual Evensong. It actually started with a recording that I did with Street Orchestra Live, playing the Toreador theme from Carmen. And that was a really, really good insight into both the musical and the technical challenges which we might face with the Virtual Evensong. So in a way, we could kind of call that a practice run of the Virtual Evensong just with one piece.
So let's start with, how did you do it? So Alex did the mainly audio, and Matt did the mainly the video, although both helped each other, of course. So Alex, tell us of the overview and the audio.
Yes, so in the grand scheme of things, it's quite a simple idea. Everybody, wherever they are, records themselves with a backing track that you have made, and then we collect it using some kind of network, Dropbox or other, and then we just line them all up and put them together, and that's the idea generally. And I kind of went above and beyond with making sure that every single syllable of every singer was together, which I think paid off in the quality in the end.
Actually, quite often people said, what about getting it together? Well, we were more fussy about the audio than the video, weren't we?
Yes. First of all, it should be noted that originally Alex was going to do all of this on his own, and it started off with the intro with the Talus, "If You Love Me," and everybody sent in their audio files. Everyone sent in their video files to him, and he said, "Right, I need a little bit of help with this. My machine is not dealing very well with video." we were layering nine levels of video, which is the 8 singers and 1 conductor, which is Ralph. So that is essentially 9 videos being played at the same time. What that does is it's very CPU intensive, it's very intensive on your processor, it's doing a lot of calculations at the same time. And so Alex's machine wasn't quite up to spec for the video. So he sent those to me, and it was my job basically just to line those up.
A way that quite often people do. Did we at all, Alex and Matt? Did we have a click track for anything?
No.
People, would you have preferred a click track for certain things?
Personally, I would have personally.
Matt would have done.
This is
would Alex?
Yeah, Alex probably would.
I think it would have helped in some aspects of my work, but I'm quite a purist in terms of musical production. I wouldn't have wanted the click track for the sake of making it easy. I think the music is restricted that way. Even when I've done pop recordings at university, I would insist on not having a click track because I think it's more natural.
I like that. So let's continue with this. And now I'm going to go, having said how we do it, I'm going to go through 1 or 2 questions. Various people have said, so pleased that there were so many views. That's lovely. Nobody actually said, why did we have Stephen Fry reading the lesson? Because he's an atheist. And I would say Evensong is for people of all faiths and none. It's for us all to enjoy. I also say the music that has been produced for the Christian church is some of the best music ever produced. We really mustn't keep it to ourselves. It's for everybody, and we welcome everybody. Another production, people ask for another production. So what's our first production we're doing soon?
I think we're on the brink of deciding which one to do first, but is it going to be Bainton, I Saw a New Heaven, or An Unaccompanied Piece of Parry?
Yes, it is going to be one or the other. And I think David Good is possibly, as we speak, recording the accompaniment to And I Saw. And because I worked with him at Eton for so many years, he knows exactly how I do it. And I love anyway he does it anyway. He doesn't have to do it how I do it. I just love what he does because he's such a musician. So he'll be putting down that, and I'll conduct it as if I'm controlling it, which I'm not, and then bring everyone in at the right place. Then an unaccompanied parry. There's another question. How did you stay motivated to add together so many different audios and videos? Well, I suppose there's nothing like a deadline for motivation.
It's a really good question. I think honestly, it's genuinely just the company of working with Matt the whole time. We were just always on the phone with each other on Zoom or just phone call, constantly talking to each other. And yeah, it is a tricky one when you've got, it seems like an unending project, especially at the start of it. How do you get yourself to sit down and go through 1,000 submissions? How
long did it take you? How many hours, Alex and Matt? Alex first. How many hours?
Honestly, yeah, hard to say because we weren't keeping track.
Matt?
I'm gonna hazard a guess, not taking into account exporting, render time, and uploading time. Just hours of working, probably in the range of probably 400 hours.
400 hours. That. Alex,
something
more
than
that,
like
won't
that.
it?
For the pair of us, or
no, for you. 400 for Matt on his own. How many for you? Because each video has to be sorted out, doesn't it?
Yes, I mean, I didn't have time to go through and listen to every single video on its own. There were times when I would spot check videos at specific points, but generally, I wouldn't have had time to go through every single video start to finish. I would just trust that it was going to be okay, and if there was a problem, it would make itself known later on in the editing process.
Anthony Fletcher from Grantham wants to know how long it would take to get a hymn down. He wants to do a simple hymn. Mind you, hymns are a little bit awkward because you get new verses and you need to start. So you need an exact number of beats between the verses. And
as long
probably
as everyone
put down
knows that time, it's fine.
first. Matt?
As long as everybody knows, as long as everybody's following the same thing, like the same tempo and the same organ part, then it's fine. Like, you can make little adjustments in your audio editor, whichever one you want to use. Alex and I have been using Logic for this. But as long as you're all following the same track, that's kind of eliminated the different hymns. And I mean, obviously, as long as you're singing the same words too, that's something you can't really change.
Alex, All My Hope, how long did the hymn, how long did that take approximately, you personally, to do?
All My Hope was a little bit more rushed than the other pieces, but to do a simple hymn of 3 or 4 verses, I would reckon, for me, it would take about 6 hours to do just the audio editing for, say, 30 people. Does he say how many people he's...
He's going for 50 people, I think, and he's using Filmora 9 as his software.
Okay, I don't have so much. I think that's. I mean, it sounds like the name as well. It's a video editing software, so I don't know what audio capabilities it has. But yes, I would say to do the way I worked, which is to use Logic, and I'll go into that in a second, a little bit deeper to kind of reveal how we got everyone sounding so together. Because looking through the YouTube comments, there's a lot of comments about it's so together and how have you done that, and so I can talk about that in a bit.
And what is the best software to use?
Well, I would say either Logic Pro X or Pro Tools. And anybody who knows me will maybe be shocked at me saying that because I don't like using either of them. I'd rather use Pyramix myself, which is a completely different software.
How do you spell that, Pyramix?
Pyramix, as in pyramid, but with an X at the end. And
right.
It's used by a lot of classical sound recording companies. But yes, Logic was the first thing I ever got, and I've had it for 6 or 7 years. No, less than that. But anyway, and
somebody has just asked about that, so we'll come on to that. And they've asked about the quality. Just before that, somebody says Edward Slade, who's an old friend who sang with Rodolfo's choir a long time ago, said, "Is this your proudest achievement?" Which is so nice. But I feel that whatever I'm working on is my proudest achievement. But I must say that sitting watching the Evensong with 4,000 people watching it all at the same time was a terrific feeling of togetherness when we'd been locked down such a lot,
and how nice that we could all respond in the comments as well. We had that really wonderful level of interaction together.
Yeah, I love all those comments. So somebody says what they loved most of all was Carolyn Kett from Drayton in Norwich was listening to the birds in the garden. You're not the only one. While you're listening to it, you're not the only one. And somebody said at one point, particularly with that amazing Simon Russell Beale second lesson, that we couldn't quite tell whether the birds in the churchyard that he was speaking from were the same as the birds we were listening to outside. And Simon, I adore his way of reading, and he chose that as well. And what a wonderful choice between the awful barbarian David and Goliath and the wonderful Corinthians about charity, which we all need. So how did we choose people to go on the production? Well, actually, we took all comers, didn't we?
Well, there's a lot of trust involved in these kind of things with whoever your audio engineer is, because the performance that is basically representative not just of the studio that you're working with, but of the ensemble as a whole, is in the hands of one person. So you're really relying on their ears, essentially. And of course, Alex has done a tremendous job at making sure that everybody is together, pitched correctly, balanced correctly, so that you're not hearing, a stray soprano or a stray tenor getting excited, sticking out like a sore thumb.
He's talking about himself there.
I am talking about myself there. I went up to the alto line in the end of the parry.
You bad boy.
I let him do it. I left it in there.
Let him do it, and you couldn't delete him. That's the first I've heard of that. That's very good. I'll listen to it. That's the
B flat on consciousness. Yeah.
That last chord. I always think of second sopranos as naughtily straying onto the top soprano, so that they can sing the top B flat. Did you have to strengthen the second soprano part there?
I did. Fortunately, there weren't many people straying from their part. There weren't many. There was. There was pretty much everyone stayed on their part, but I did feel like I had to push the second sopranos a bit on that F natural when it changes. I love it when it changes from the F sharp and then they go up to the G. The first go up to the G and the second's coming on the F natural. But yes, it was a case of just balancing where it needed balancing. And yes, mistakes. So coming back to the original question about how we decided, I think because I've had a look at some of the questions that have come through, and they said, how do we choose? Some pieces were completed early, but actually those were just as a first glimpse because we wanted to try and enthuse people. It's happening. Look what we've done with what we've got so far. Join in. That wasn't the final audio. That was like it wasn't the final video. It was just a kind of snapshot of what we had at the time. So we were adding voices when we added all the voices that came in. And yes, as you say, when there were mistakes, they were turned down. Everyone was sort of balanced to be the same sort of level. And I think I only had of the something like, over 970 submissions. I think in total I only had 5 that were completely unusable audio because of, I don't know, corrupt files or something like that. And there were some that I chased up about incorrect submissions, and I said, "Have you got this?" And they came in. But yeah, corrupt audio, anything like that, we had very, very few, and it was at the point where it wouldn't be time efficient to chase them up and get them to do it all again. So things like that would have been muted completely, but their video is still usable. And so Matt, as you said, Ralph, we used every single video that came in, and we spent about 6.5, nearly 7 hours on the phone cross-referencing our entire filing system to make sure we hadn't missed a single submission.
Brilliant.
It's all in good company though, so it was, the time felt like it was 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's weird looking at your phone.
Just before we finish, is there anything else you want to add, something you haven't mentioned about advice to other people? Because I think more and more people, we know more and more people are going to be using this system. So everybody's hungry for advice. So any quick nuggets of advice you want to give, things you learned through those 400 hours or whatever it was?
Yes. So I would, as I've said to a few people now, Matt and I have learnt 100 ways not to do an Evensong. We tried to make it really simple, instructions wise. So there was all manner of sins in terms of how to do things. So I would say
wickednesses.
Yes, in terms of just because we hadn't specified, we didn't want to dissuade anyone from getting involved, so we made it really simple. And as a result of that, we had a lot of different ways that people were doing things, and we had to just sort of make out of it what we could. I would recommend to people who want to know how to do it, because as you said, Ralph, we should be sharing the music, and likewise we should be sharing how we've done this, because it shouldn't be exclusive. If you search on Google "I can virtual choir," as in I can do it, you'll find a load of links. There's a really good webpage by Del Rey Studios, and they have a load of videos and an explanation. It's not entirely extensive, but it tells you what software they used, and how they did it, how much time it took, and kind of ways that they can go about it. So I'd be very specific about your instructions. Make sure people start filming before they press play on the accompaniment. Please.
Oh, please. It doesn't matter so much for audio, but for video, it just means that, you don't exist for the entire organ introduction for I Was Glad, for instance. And then all of a sudden you just pop in going, I was glad! And it looks like it just... What's a good analogy?
You weren't glad.
That's accurate. Might be an understatement.
It just made things a touch difficult. And so, yes, I'd say be really precise with your instructions. And if you've got a closed group of people, like a set choir you're going to do it with, rather than we had it open to the world, you can do that, and it's good that because the people, you all know what the cause is, and you can say, look, I want you to do it this way, or otherwise we won't use your video, and they'll accept that.
Anything else anyone wants to add?
I've got one thing, which is bigger is better when you're referring to whatever you're editing on. Because if you've got a slow laptop that struggles to open emails, it's not going to work for video editing at all. So
that's why
I'd recommend getting. Yeah, honestly, and Alex's machine is good. It's the same one as the one that's stuck on the side of the desk here. But yeah, bigger is better in terms of those specifications. Do your research on, like your basic video editing requirements. That's all I'm gonna say.
I feel like we could dive in a little bit onto how we did it. Maybe we could save that for another video, but like the real specifics of how I produced it with Matt and how I worked and got it to be sounding the way it sounded.
I think that might be very, very useful. And then it'll be specifically for people who are going to do it for themselves. And it could be alongside, and you could go through and see what other videos there are of instructions for people. You could sum it all up and add to it yourself. I think that's a very good idea. In the meantime, it's been very useful for people, I'm sure, to see how we did it. I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for actually doing it, because you made it, and I just wouldn't have believed when we started off that it was going to end up as huge as it was. Anyway, good stuff. Thank you so much for collaborating. That's what it's all about. And
not at all. It's been a dream.
Here's to the next one.